going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition here of Mean Streets on our FTN Network YouTube page. Chris Meaney and MLB Dream here with you, and we are about to preview the Boston Red Sox from a betting and a fantasy baseball perspective. We're going to talk about their division odds to win the World Series, win total, their fantasy assets this season, as well as maybe a couple sleepers from a fantasy baseball draft perspective. If you are looking for a draft kit, we got you covered over at ftnfantasy.com. Our guy, Vlad Sedler, has put together an unbelievable draft kit with all kinds of articles to get you set for your fantasy baseball drafts. And Drew, you and I were chatting when we were talking about the Baltimore Orioles division preview. It's a kit that's for everybody. If you're a baseball fan, you get a lot of enjoyment out of it, even if you don't play a lot of fantasy baseball. We got rankings, projections, strategy pieces, closer pieces, breakouts, sleepers, dynasty rankings, all kinds of greatness in the draft kit. Vlad's, of course, going to take care of you throughout the season. Dream and I are going to take care of you from a betting standpoint as well. Promo code Seeger5 to save yourself a little bit of cash on that fantasy baseball kit. The rankings and projections are live. Taking a look at them right now over at FTN Fantasy. And FTN wins to save yourself a little bit of cash over at ftnbets.com. Some future picks already in the MLB tracker. And we have the GOAT here, MLB Dream, to help us out. Let's talk the Red Sox. They're obviously a polarizing figure, still a big market team. I've been a little bit confused about their path and some of their decisions over the past couple of seasons as we take a look at their odds, getting the best possible number over at ftnbets.com, prop shop. ftnbets.com/prop shop. We have a link inside the description of this video, along with the draft kit to bring you there. You see 15-1 to win the AL East, 27-1 to win the pennant, 50-1 to win the World Series, and the win total here is at 79.5. Red Sox fans will say, it's an easy smash to the over. But I think I heard that last year from them as well. And all they did was rattle off 78 wins. They came last in the AL East. What do you make of the Sox as we take a look at some of the pieces here on this roster? The biggest addition, I suppose, at the moment, we're recording in February. Things could change. There's still some key free agents out there. Tyler O'Neill comes in from St. Louis, a little bit of pop in his bat. And Lucas Giolito here, and roster resource over at Fangraphs has him penciled in as the ace here on the squad. Let's just start overall with the team. Any of these numbers, is there anything here that's appealing? Like, I see you shaking your head. I mean, this isn't a team that's going to compete for the division. Maybe they can rattle off 80 wins, but I think that's a big maybe, no?
That's a huge maybe, especially if we see them kind of selling off some pieces. It doesn't even look like they might not even wait until the deadline. We've heard that Jansen is available as well as a couple other bullpen pieces. I laugh when you call them a big market team because they are, but they're kind of playing like a small market. I mean,
yeah, it's fair.
They bring in Giolito and the next day they trade Sale. It just doesn't make much sense, especially when you bring up the free agents that are available. Like Montgomery, I don't necessarily like his price tag, but he makes perfect sense for this team. Snell would be a great fit as well. It doesn't seem like they're willing to spend anymore this offseason. They've pretty much said that this is going to be our rotation, almost our team going into the season. So I would, like that over 79 if I didn't think they were kind of selling or pretty much playing for next year. I don't think it's a team that you can trust that going to go out there and do everything they can to actually make the postseason. I don't think that's what they're really interested in. And, coming into last year, I actually thought that they had a chance to finish better than the Orioles did last year. I wasn't high on them last year, but I thought that people were a little bit too low on them. I think people are appropriately low on the Red Sox this season.
Yeah, it's really about the rotation for me. I mean, they have some appealing bats. I mean, obviously led by Rafael Devers. But I just don't really believe in the rotation. And it's been a weird couple of years. You're right. Like, we're used to seeing them be aggressive and spend some money. And then first it started with Mookie Betts, not signing him after the World Series, kind of going all in on Sale as opposed to Betts. And I think for me, it felt like that's what cost them Mookie, was re-upping on Sale. Instead, I would have liked to see them keep Mookie around. And then Xander Bogaerts leaves. So we've seen some pieces leave over the past couple of years. But like I said, I mean, from an offensive standpoint, I think they could be sneaky. I mean, Devers is the top guy here. You see the ADP on average we're recording mid-February here. So things are definitely going to change a little bit, but not so much for Devers. Pick 23 on average is one of the top third basemen in fantasy baseball, 33 bombs, 100 ribbies last year. Third time he's had 30 homers and 100 RBI in the last 5 years. Triston Casas, I think you may have something to say about Casas. I think I brought him up on an FTN call. We were talking about Vlad's projections. Casas was a guy that I think Frank and Vlad like maybe a little bit more than the average projectionist. I don't know. We'll just put that word out there. We'll make it a word. I was looking at Vlad's projections. He has some top 15 in terms of homers. And Cass is very, very interesting. 24 homers and 502 plate appearances last year. The 263 average. The first half was awful. Just absolutely awful for this guy. 225, 320 WOBA, 97 WRC plus. And the second half was very good, like a 317 average, 433 WOBA, a 175 RC plus, 15 homers in the second half compared to 9. But at the end of the day, he still only hit 215 against left-handed pitching. Maybe he's somewhere in between, right? Maybe not as bad as the first half and not as good as the second half. Like, what's your expectations for Casas? Like, is this a guy that can go north of 30, 35 home runs? Because I think we haven't projected for 35. It's a pretty high number.
That does seem pretty high. I mean, I know I had a funny facial expression, but like I like him. I think my favorite thing about watching him is like he has a really good idea of the strike zone. He's not going to swing at a pitch that he doesn't think he can do damage on, and it's really actually fun to watch those guys and how they approach and their approach at the plate. I was kind of thinking he'd probably be closer to like 25 home runs than 35. Maybe we can split the difference and meet at 30. But yeah, I think he's a great hitter, and he's one of those guys like I really enjoy watching because he has a pitch in an area in mind, and if he doesn't get that pitch, he's not swinging. And I like that. I do think he's great, and like you said, the Red Sox have a pretty good lineup, except when you get to I guess to that like bottom third. Yeah. We'll see what Grissom can do, but right now they have Abreu, Grissom, and Wong as their 7, 8, 9. Like that's not going to get it done, and especially not in the American League East.
No, not in the American League East either. Again, I think the pitching. We'll get into some of their arms in a second, but Duran, leadoff guy, 102 games last season, 362 plate appearances. He had 8 bombs, 24 stolen bases, 46 runs. So he's kind of touching a lot of categories for people. But again, a 227 hitter against lefties for his career. Last year, 289. He hit lefties really well, but kind of a small sample size. Half a season, kind of really in terms of plate appearance. Can he get up over 600? Most projections do have him for that. 296 against righties. As for Trevor Story, my goodness, things have just not been good for him since he left Colorado. I mean, that's clear. Not breaking any news here. Everyone that follows baseball, when you leave Coors, your numbers are going to decline. Tulo, that happened to him when he left Colorado and went to Toronto. 43 games last season, just 3 homers. And a 203 average, 94 games in 2022, 16 homers and hit 238. The ISO numbers really are what stands out to me. 196 and 114 the last 2 years. This guy in Colorado, and again, it's Coors. I get it. But 221, 230, 276, and 260, some of his ISO numbers. Injuries have just been a big issue for him. I think, where he's going in drafts as a shortstop, the shortstop position, here at 174 on average, I think it's like an okay pill to swallow if you drafted him and he dealt with some injuries, because in years past the price tag was a little bit more expensive to draft him. I got Red Sox buddies that are sending me screenshots of how he looks good, and it looks good already. He's healthy, he's ready to go, but it's only February, and unfortunately just injuries have really slowed him down. Another guy on that list that we saw last year as a rookie is Masataka Yoshida. I thought he had pretty solid campaign, man. Like the average was solid for him. Not a ton of power. 156 ISO, 14% strikeout rate, good contact skills, 15 bombs, 8 stolen bases. He combined for roughly 140 runs in RBI. Most projections have him for a very similar campaign. Flirting with a 300 average, maybe 15 bombs, double-digit stolen bases. And then I'll toss one more out and then get your thoughts on the rest of this lineup. Is O'Neill? I'll be honest, I have been a sucker for Tyler O'Neill over the past couple of years in fantasy, taking a look at home run props with him. I have been burned before. He had the big breakout campaign in 2021 with the Cards, 34 bombs, 15 stolen bases, 14 homers in 2022, limited to 383 plate appearances and 9 last year. sub 300 plate appearances, but 62 of his 78 home runs in his career have been against righties. So it is something to keep in mind if you are playing DFS or you're looking for some props, because there may be an opportunity for him to drive in some runs if some dudes can get on base for him. So he could be a sneaky little asset towards the end of your draft. But anything to add on some of those Red Sox players that I just tossed out at you? Who's the most appealing for you?
Well, it kind of sounds like we're both a couple of suckers for O'Neill, huh? We just need Vlad on here
Okay.
to complete the trio.
Yes.
But yeah, I definitely want to see him match some homers over the monster, and we'll be looking at some home run props. You mentioned Yoshida. He was actually a guy I was surprised they mentioned his name in trade rumors his first year over here. I think he had you could safely say that he had a tough time adjusting to the long schedule. I mean, he did really well in the first half, 136 WRC plus, 73 in the second half. The schedule goes, they're not used to necessarily playing 162 games. So I think that might have had a little something to do with it. He'll be primarily DHing for them this year. I mean, I think he'll do pretty well. I don't know what to expect out of Story. I'm seeing his home runs projected around 20. I mean, he's only 31. It's on the wrong side of 30 for baseball, but I don't know. I have no clue what to expect.
That's such a low number, but I don't know if I would take it. Just given the track record of health over the past couple of years, and we haven't seen him anywhere close to the guy that he was in Colorado. Like, just haven't seen it.
Yeah, that signing didn't make a ton of sense at the time, especially when they still had Xander for one more year, and it looks like a bad move. Even a couple years later.
Okay, so this rotation, I think this is why I don't, and I it's all baked into the win total and the odds. Again, I feel like some of these pieces in their lineup, like Devers, Casas, Duran, O'Neill late round pick, like these are guys that I don't mind drafting at all. But their pitching staff, Lucas Giolito, man, I saw him first hand with the Halos. Like, this guy, man, what a rough go he had with the Angels, and even when he went over to Cleveland, I do believe the Cape earning guy last 2 years, but from 2019 to 2021, 11, 12, and 10. So the strikeouts have come down over the past couple of seasons. The walks, 3.4, 3.6 walks per nine over the last 2 years. 41 home runs. That's how many he coughed up last year. 24 plus in 5 of his last 6. The only season he didn't cough up 24 homers was that 2020 shortened campaign. He had the 44% fly ball rate last year and 40 for his career. I just feel like this is a guy that I'm going to pick on a lot in the betting market. Like bombs, Fenway, AL East, like, I don't know, man. I think like sometimes it looks like he's on. He can rack up a bunch of strikeouts, and other times it's just he walks a bunch of dudes, and then all of a sudden it's a crooked number, and he's given up 5 or 6 already. So I just think stacking it. I know I could already hear our DFS team, Alex Blickles, telling me stacking against Giolito today. Get some bombers in there. Bayo's probably your favorite pitcher of the bunch that Boston has to offer, right?
Oh, yeah, I love Bayo. I would like to see him, unlock another level and get a few more strikeouts to be more useful, not only in fantasy, but so we can start hitting some over props for him in the strikeout market as well. And I think Breslow, he was with the White Sox last year. His specialty is pitching. I think that he can potentially unlock another level with some of these guys. I don't know what to expect with Giolito. I know he had some personal issues last year dealing with a divorce and things like that. And then, being traded multiple times is never easy as well.
No,
I think it'll be difficult to be as bad as he was last year, but I don't know if we're going to see the Giolito that, we saw for most of his career with the White Sox. I did want the Orioles to sign him. I thought he'd be a guy that they could potentially fix. And if a guy with a home run issues at Oriole Park at Camden Yards, I think that's a pretty good fit. So it's probably a wait and see approach with Giolito for me, and just kind of see what his stuff looks like and what the numbers look like. But yeah, Bayo's a guy that I hope kind of takes that next step. We see him working with Pedro again this offseason, and hopefully he learns a couple things from Mr. Martinez.
Yeah, and I know you were all over some of his strikeout props last year, some low numbers that you took advantage of, and I think he's a pretty decent target in the mid 230s here. Like, if I had a choice between the two, and I don't want to be too harsh on Giolito. Maybe things can turn around for him because we've seen pitchers before. He's definitely had some great campaigns, as you alluded to, and with the White Sox. I mean, maybe he can turn back the clock just a little bit, but I think the better target there may be Bayo and Pivetta. I know our guy Vlad is a sucker for Nick Pivetta, and sometimes you just never know. He can go out there and strike out 8 or 9 and really blow you away. And other times maybe he can't get out of the first inning. But he's had some decent showings over the past couple of years in terms of the
So I
strikeout
feel
prop
like
guy too.
Pavetta is a guy that a lot of us have been waiting years now. Like, oh, Pavetta's arrived, or he's finally breaking out. He did add, I think, a sweeper last year, because I know he did a lot of work in the bullpen and then switched back to the rotation at the end of the year. But he added a sweeper, and that was really working really well for him. And that's where he was getting a lot of his whiffs and strikeouts. So he's actually someone that I'll be looking at in the strikeout market. Hopefully we continue to get some of those low numbers. And that's actually probably where I'm going to look at Cutter Crawford as well. He showed some good case stuff last year as well. So this is not a team I'm probably going to be betting on a bunch, but those are a couple of guys that I'll definitely be looking at in the strikeout market here.
All right, let's do a prediction. Lean to the I mean, it's a sharp 9. It's a sharp number, the 79.5. It's really sharp. I could see them getting 80 wins. This is stay away from me. I'm not going to really bet it. Where do you think they finish in the division?
Last
again?
Last. And it's not close, man. It's not close. I mean, they just have look at the other teams in the division, and I know Tampa has a bunch of guys on the IL, but they're like the Red Sox talent just isn't there when you look at these other rosters in the American League East, and it's kind of sad. I don't root for the Red Sox, but it's sad to kind of see them being a bottom cellar dweller and not spending is just not good for baseball.
Yeah, it's very different. Shout out to our guy George. Just says the Red Sox don't spend any money anymore. Cheapos, McDonald's coupons. If he was here, he'd say that for us. Yeah, nothing else to add. I think you brought up a good point that they could be sellers, right? They could ship off some of these guys. Jansen could be gone, and then other guys inside the squad could move on from them, and maybe they're just a 70-win team. We'll see. Again, check out ftnbets.com/pricing, ftnfantasy.com/pricing. Seeger5, the promo code for you over at FTN Fantasy for the draft kit, and then FTN wins for the betting package. Good luck, you Red Sox fans out there. From MLB Dream, myself, Chris Meaney. Appreciate you guys taking the time to hang out.